Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kelli Roisman, and I'm the chair of the student chapter of the Society of American Archivists here at SJSU. Tonight, we're hosting a webinar on writing opportunities for the students in our iSchool community. And who we are. We have Laurie Putnam, and she is a faculty advisor for the LIS Wiki project, and she's also a lecturer here at the iSchool. We also have Agee joining us. She is the Director of Collections and Scholarly Communications at the King Library. She oversees scholar works, and she will be talking about that with us tonight. I just got a message from Greta, and she is trying to connect, so she'll join us in a bit. So, and there's Greta, and she's the Editor-in-Chief of the Student Research Journal. And I'm Kelli Roisman, and as I said, I'm the chair, and I'm also the managing editor of Archeota, which is the publication produced by SAASC. So, right, get on the right side. Okay, so why we're here tonight. We're going to show you resources that will help you in your program here at the iSchool, and will help you learn more about what opportunities there are as well for publishing. I'm getting text, excuse me, from Greta. So we will also be sharing ideas about what you can write about. And that would lead to inspiration. You should be writing about something that inspires you. This, you know, we do assignments for our coursework, but we can also choose topics. For example, for those in Information 200, you choose your topic as for an information community, and no one tells you which one to choose. So that's important that it is something that you find interesting to yourself. And then what we hope from what you gain tonight is that you are inspired to challenge yourself to write not only for your classes, but consider other platforms for publishing your work. So I'm going to check Greta just to make sure. Okay, great. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our student chapter. What we do is we create opportunities, just as we are tonight. It's not just for our membership, but for the students in all of the iSchool. We provide a platform for student voices, and that can mean, that can be getting involved in our student activities, whether it's going on site tours or online events like tonight. We also engage students in professional activities. So we have opportunities for you to get involved on a professional level and engaging with professionals in the field. And we also want to foster your career growth. And tonight, what we're talking about with writing and publishing and research, it is a central part of your professional development. So going forward, Archeota. This is our publication. We publish it twice a year, and we have our own editorial team of students. I am the managing editor. We have Agee. She is our associate editor for this year. We also have Christine Mahoney, and she is also an associate editor. We do produce two issues a year. In the fall, we had our last issue published in December, and we had several contributors, and they're all members of the iSchool community, all students in our program. So I was just going to go over, you know, what kind of articles do we publish in Archeota? We are not a research journal. Greta is the editor-in-chief of the Student Research Journal, and she'll be talking about that. And that journal is actually peer-reviewed. Our publication, on the other hand, is more of a magazine style. in terms of the tone and the content. So one thing that we do accept articles for are profiles of iSchool students and their achievements. So in the December issue, Alyssa Key wrote an article about Angela Osborne. She interviewed her and asked her about the scholarship she won and what it meant in terms of her inspiration for her career that she's chosen in becoming a librarian. And the Pinkett Award, it's an award in honor of Harold Pinkett. He was the first African-American president of the Society of American Archivists. Now, the other thing that people have written about are their personal experiences in archives. They may have been an intern somewhere, or it may be their work experience. In last issue, Ashley Kale, she works at the Yale University, the Beinecke Library. And she was processing a collection of personal papers for Saul Steinberg. And he's a well-known cartoonist, illustrator, a prominent individual. Therefore, the Beinecke acquired the collection. But for any of us who do work in archives or even libraries, the idea is that there are stories that get overlooked. And she ended up processing the personal papers of Sigrid Spaeth. And Sigrid was in a relationship, I should say, with Saul Steinberg for many, many years. So this was actually part of the collection, were her diaries and personal papers. And in processing that collection, Ashley made an emotional connection with Sigrid. The other thing that we publish are current events. I don't know how many of you know, but in December, the museum in Washington, D.C. closed. They were no longer able to run the museum. So Christine Mahoney wrote a reflective piece about what it means to lose the museum and how that affects journalism in our society. Okay, we also write about controversies. I wrote an article last spring when I found out that I read about a lawsuit that was lodged by Tamara Lanier. And she had discovered that she traced her genealogy and found families who had been in slavery. And then there was a connection made. Someone approached her and said, your relatives are being held, you know, their photographs are being held by the Yale University. So that connection was made. And Tamara tried to engage with Yale University, or I'm saying Yale because of Ashley's work, I'm sorry, Harvard. And she tried to engage with them for years, and they really just shunned her and didn't even acknowledge that this might be an issue. So last spring, a lawsuit was lodged, and that's still not resolved. But in June this year, or this past year, there were 40 descendants of Agee. He was the professor who commissioned the slave daguerreotypes, and they urged that the university honor Tamara Lanier's claim. Okay, pop culture. We also had in our past issue, Marissa Friedman wrote about pop culture and how archives and archivists are perceived and portrayed in pop culture. Think pieces. Greta has joined us now, I believe. And in our last issue, Greta wrote about archiving Twitter. There was a Library of Congress effort to archive all of Twitter, well, this was in the initial days of Twitter, and that soon grew from, you know, thousands to millions to billions of tweets. And so Greta wrote a very interesting piece about that. So Archeota, we are publishing again this spring. I'd like to ask all of you to consider contributing. Our submission deadline is March 31st. These aren't long articles. They don't have to be. As I said, the types of articles that we publish in our publication are magazine style. So if you're interested, do get in touch with me. You can email or check out our website. And just wanted to know if you, when you are on the SJSU iSchool website, the same place that you see your class schedules or other information for students, there is a student resource menu, and one of the items on that menu is student groups. If you go to that page, you'll get the links to all of the student chapters at the iSchool. You'll get the links to their blogs, to their websites, and more. So you can find all that information. It is there. Okay, so any questions regarding that?
I have a question, Kelly.
Sure.
This is Jillian. I am pretty interested in the kind of magazine format you guys take with the Archeota thing, because most of the things I've seen with archives and publications is it's kind of dry and stuff, and as somebody who's interested in archives, so this is pretty refreshing. When you mentioned overlooked stories and or pop culture, so would you say overlooked stories would be like just if you see something in the news, or like say somebody discovered the original film reel of something or other and you can write about it, those types of things, as well as for pop culture, kind of like in the vein of like archivists, like, well, Indiana Jones is an archivist, is not an archivist, but that's always what I refer to. Or have you seen things like that in the past, and how would you recommend, how would you say this would enhance writing skills and stuff like that? Because I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's cool too. Yeah, I didn't even know about Archeota until last spring when I did see the iAlert request for submissions, and I had just happened to read something about this Tamara Lanier's lawsuit. I thought that was very interesting. It just so happened that a week later I get the iAlert asking for submissions. I thought, well, I could write about that, and I'm glad I did. You know, we're not looking for specific categories. I think I just put up pop culture because that's the, you know, the area that article pertained to. Anything archives related, something that, you know, whatever inspires you, whatever interesting thing you want to write about, and it should be fun. I'm not assigning a research essay, so try to think of this as more of a relief from all of your classwork, as opposed to one more thing that has to be completed. I don't know if I answered your question completely. Do you want to let me know what else was part of your answer? I feel that there was more to the question.
No, that's fine. It just seems like it clarified a lot for me, even in the brief answer. I think that, you know, I didn't really know my question fully. I just kind of wanted to maybe hear your take on it, and you kind of gave me your take.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, be inspired.
I can dig it.
It should be fun. So, okay. Are we ready to move on? I think we're good. All right. I'm going to turn it over. Let me see here. Right. I'm introducing now Anne Agee. I'm so happy that she could participate tonight. She is the Faculty Director of Collections and Scholarly Communications at the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Library here at the iSchool. And she also oversees scholar works, and that's what she will be talking about tonight. Anne, hi.
Hi, thanks, Kelly.
Sure. Hi.
So shall I just tell you when I want to move slides?
Yeah, I'll
There you go.
start here.
So as Kelly mentioned, I'm the Scholarly Communications and Collections Director, and that includes SJSU ScholarWorks, which is the King Library's institutional repository, which simply means we take care of anything produced by faculty and students at San Jose State. For example, if you're writing a thesis rather than doing the e-portfolio for your culminating project, that would go into ScholarWorks. We do the peer-reviewed journals created by students. Greta will be talking later about the School of Information's Student Research Journal. That's there in ScholarWorks, as is Archeota, which is under our student chapters. So San Jose ScholarWorks is where everything lives that's created by students and faculty. But I'm going to be talking more generally today about academic writing and academic publishing. So if you could go to the next slide.
Whoops, did
Oops.
I miss?
There we go.
Yeah.
So Kelly gave a lot of good examples of how to think of ideas about what to write about, because I think a lot of people new to academic writing, that's the big stumbling block. I don't have anything to say. What am I going to write about? You do have something to say. And what you're bringing to the conversation is a pair of fresh eyes, and don't undervalue that. So I've been in the profession for over a decade, and librarians and archivists last for a long, long time. So you're working with people who've been in the profession for multiple decades in some parts. So bringing a pair of fresh eyes to the situation is extremely valuable. So think about what bothers you. Why do the people do this way? How could it be improved? And there's some unexamined assumptions in the field. For a long time, it was that archives are neutral. You collect what you collect. Everyone agrees on what you collect, right? Obviously, that's not true. There was a lot of things that were not collected that should have been because of cultural assumptions and cultural expectations. So that's an example of something that you could look at. And what are the pain points? What's not working for the users, for yourself? Even if you aren't working in an archive, working in a library, think about your classroom, think about your studies, think about the subjects you're looking at and writing about in your classes. And then listservs. If you haven't joined any, join some. The Society of American Archivists, if you're in the archivist track, but there is a listserv for every subject and sub-subject and sub-sub-subject out there in the field of librarianship. Librarians are crazy about listservs. And once you're on them, keep an eye on them. What's trending? What are people talking about? You could have a fresh take on whatever is in the news right now. And if you could go to the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I also wanted to share this link. I'll put this in the chat. You may have already seen this. This was in one of the iSchool blogs, and it's called How We Made the Grade. There it goes. And this is what some students did to get published and actually create a conference presentation. So that's an interesting case study that you can look at later on. And these are just some ideas of how you can leverage your schoolwork or leverage your ideas. Because once you finish the program and once you're employed, the leveraging doesn't stop. It actually gets more important. because librarians and archivists are wearing multiple hats. They're always juggling. So you have to take what you're doing in your job and leverage it into your writing. Every job's different. In the California State University system where I work, faculty, librarians are faculty and archivists are faculty. And so we're on the tenure track. As part of that, we have to publish, we have to present in order to get tenure. A lot of libraries, that's not the case. University of California system, librarians are a type of staff. So as I say, every place is different. But no matter where you're working, publishing looks good on your CV. It's worth doing. So start with a newsletter or a blog. I put a very short little clip of some of the regional, state, and local archival societies that are out there. And you can see this is just A through C. There's so many of them. And they do newsletters, they do blogs. You could offer to write for them. That's a good way to dip your toe into the academic publishing. If you are working in the library right now, some really intensive work project, something very complicated, or a deep dive you're doing, you could get an article out of that. Good experience, bad experience, same thing, write about it. If you're doing the thesis option when you finish the program, rework it into an article. You're going to be researching the heck out of whatever topic you choose. So you might as well benefit from that. Start with a poster. This is a different type of publishing. This is still giving back to the profession, but posters at a local conference. And there's virtual conferences. If you don't have travel money, you can still put in for a poster and get it published virtually. And often those are more findable. And so it's kind of nice for your academic profile. And you'll see on the slide, I also gave the archivists.org website there. That's where I got the list of the regional and local archives. And if you could, oh, I forgot one. Book reviews. That's an easy way to start with getting published, is to find a journal, a magazine. Library Journal does a lot of these, of book reviews, in which case you're reading a new book, writing a review on it. They can be 200 words, they can be 1,000 words. It depends on where you're getting published. But it gets you out there, it gets you published, and you learned something because you've read a book. So if you could go to the next slide. Get into the habit of writing. I mean, you're in the program, you're sick to death of writing already, but it is a good habit to get into. And you're very busy, I know, with work and with your family and with trying to get through the program, all your classes. But even within there, just get into the habit of chipping away at it, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes every day. And don't wait for the muse. She doesn't come. Just think of writing as work and something that you can do. And, writing is not simply putting words on a page. It can be researching a literature review, copy editing something you did the day before, writing a letter and asking an editor if they'd be interested in the article you're thinking about. All of that is writing. All of that is moving the ball forward to being an academic writer and researcher. And also know that imposter syndrome seems to be an epidemic amongst librarians and archivists. And once again, don't think you have nothing to say. That's a double negative. You do have something to say. Don't think you don't. And just don't pay attention to the imposter syndrome that seems to affect everyone. And also think about what you're doing. You're giving back to the profession. You're making a contribution. This is a service profession, and so this is part of it. Your fellow librarians and archivists. And if you could go to the next slide. these are just some good sources for how to get into it. They're very pragmatic, very much how to, and I'm going to put some links here in the chat. And like the Wendy Belcher book, get your journal article out there in 12 weeks, 3 months, and just how to do it and how to write a lot. I also put in a Google search there in the chat. There's a lot of academic writing blogs out on the web that, again, offer very pragmatic, practical advice. And it kind of shows you you're not alone. You're in the boat with everyone else who's having a hard time with this. And if you could go up to the next slide. And this is a resource on campus called LinkedIn Learning. You get to it through SJSU 1, like you'd get into Canvas or something like that. And this is video learning. These are different courses and classes. And if you need a refresher on grammar, just put grammar into the search. There's a lot of videos on brushing up on grammar. Editing, put editing in the search. There's a lot of good videos on how to edit and how to look at your writing with a critical eye. So just know that exists on campus, free of course, you're a student. And also tons of other stuff in LinkedIn Learning. So it's a really nice resource. And that's my 10 minutes. Are there any questions?
And I want to say, I just caught something you said, don't wait for the muse. I love that expression. It's so true.
She's a bitch. She's not going to come.
She's not going to come. She's going to come and then you're okay. I was listening, but bringing, getting it, expressing it, and the discipline it takes. It does take discipline.
It does. And academic writing, for me, when I was getting started, it honestly felt like a foreign language. It's not, at least for me, it was not natural. And it's very formulaic, it's pretty dry often, and but necessarily so, because what you're doing is try to communicate as clearly with as much evidence as you can.
Yes, that's true.
Personal style, I think it will just come along with the territory, because you're looking at the world through your own eyes and the subject through your own eyes. Again, I say academic publishing is its own little genre, and it is honestly very dry. And personality often doesn't do a lot of peeking through because of the nature, the structure of academic writing articles. That's not the case usually for book reviews or looser articles in just professional publications are looser too. But if you're writing for a peer-reviewed publication, it's kind of rigid.
Yes, thank you, Anne.
You're welcome.
Does anyone have any other questions for Anne? We'll always have time later for any questions that you have, so you will have another opportunity.
Okay.
I'd like to ask one. Do you think it's possible, in my undergraduate program, I did quite a bit of writing, but it was all in MLA format. Do you think it's possible to rework some of that and put it into the more structured format required for, say, a research journal or academic writing?
Oh yeah, it's always look for doing double duty, for writing a poster and leveraging it into an article, for doing anything and leveraging it into an article. If you're wondering if the subject you've chosen is publishable, write to the editor of a journal and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. This is my approach. Do you think this is something you'd be interested in? I found editors to be very responsive.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I'm going to stop share now so that Greta, are you ready to take over?
Yes, I am. I was just going to do a link blast for people for links to what I'm talking about, so they're not distracting people in the section with them. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste all the links to what I'm talking about. I think Kelly and I will work together on putting together an email with some follow-up.
Yes.
Just in case some people really like bookmarking during the meeting, so I want to make sure that option is available to people. So let me go ahead and do my link blast here of what I'm talking about. And yeah, I will go ahead and start sharing my screen if you're ready for me.
Okay.
All right. Is that coming through?
Yeah, that looks good.
All right, and I will you as a slideshow, as we learned from our test run. Okay, that's me. And the reason the reason I put my photo there is because the editor-in-chief, like Anne, to Anne's point, our job is to be responsive and to, you know, be seeking out contributions and be the visible face of the journal, and to really want to make people feel that academic publishing is totally accessible, and we're looking for content. It's not, you know, right now we have tons of manuscripts we're reviewing, but we constantly want new, exciting content that you might be writing. Into that last question, I apologize, I don't remember the name of the individual that asked, but yes, people frequently have asked me about converting MLA styled articles into APA, but that's why we do peer review, is because we are there to help make those APA transitions if you missed any during your initial read through. And also to the question of you know, having a style, we focus a lot on like the author's voice. So you definitely can still have a voice in your academic writing. It just is, to Anne's point, the style is kind of more clear and concise and less playful than something that's more of a blog or a magazine styles thing. So anyway, SRJ stands for the Student Research Journal, and we're almost at our 10-year mark of being SJSU's only graduate student-run, double-blind, peer-reviewed journal, and we also are in the LIS field. So it works out very well for all of you that are in the LIS field to be able to have a really unique experience, either going through the peer review process with the student-run journal, or to join the team and learn more from an insider point. So basically, I wanted to focus on a few things, and I want to make sure that we have enough time for all of our content tonight. There is QR code for our blog there, otherwise I'll put the link in the chat. But we really were focusing, when I came on as editor-in-chief, of how we could demonstrate the value of research to faculty and students. So I developed a student research blog, resource blog, to help with research, because we are realizing there weren't a lot of resources made by students for students. And that was the goal, is that we really wanted to reach out and make publishing in academic journals, especially SRJ, more accessible. And so I really focused on looking at the 2019 Skills at Work report that SJSU does, and 68% of jobs seek communication skills, which would speak to anything from blog publishing to academic publishing, and just beginning that process. Even submitting your work for peer review and not working to full publication is still you learning better writing skills. And then 22% of jobs look for research skills. And at least for me, I'm in the job hunt right now for in the academic library world, and a lot of them, you know, really appreciate proof that you're invested in research for the LIS field and forwarding the profession. And regardless of if you're in academia or in archives, just demonstrating your engagement and interest, I think, is crucial. So if you have pieces of work that you can speak to, not only is that great for your portfolio to finish the program, but it's also something you can use as proof of work going forward in job applying. So I have our social media links and things like that, but we can include that in the email. But I've been working with peer mentors to do some more research resources, and the core curriculum coordinators for Info 200 and for 285, just to provide more resources for students. So moving on, this is a little wordy, so I'm going to go through it quickly. But so why, like I just said, the proof of communication research skills for your resume and ePort. And then it's also such a unique graduate student opportunity for peer review from students for students, just because sometimes it can be intimidating to dive in, but you know it's students reviewing your work. And so they are at a place where they are interested in what you're interested at your same level of expertise, but have been undergoing training as editors to improve their own writing skills. So they're right there with you. And I put a link to our most recent issue, which is bigger than better than ever, like I said. And to Kelly's point, it's interesting to know what kind of content that is accepted. We had articles from, we always do an invited contribution from faculty, and it was from Dr. Deborah Hicks on Twitter as a platform for discussion on diversity. And then we also had a really interesting article about genealogical plagiarism, which was about archiving and studying DNA. And then we had another article that was fantastic about health informatics in public libraries. So it's a full spectrum of topics. There's no limitation. It just needs to be in some way related to an LIS topic. And the other thing that we accept, besides those were more critical essays, are evidence summaries, which is our easy point of entry to the academic publishing. And you still get to have your name on the website and you got something published. Basically review an article and do sort of, it's not a full opinion piece because you need to place it within the context of, kind of the literature in the field, but it's a shorter look at one specific article. It's very short. And then book reviews. As Anne was intimating, those are a great way to get started. And we're specifically seeking reviews going forward for some of our wonderful faculty's recent books, which I listed here, which would be Dr. Bernier's Young Adult Services Today, Dr. Hirsch and Allman's Blockchain book, or Dr. Michael Stevens' Wholehearted Librarianship. Those are all fantastic textbooks that could be used for a course or just great books for the LIS field. And anything published within the last 3 years that is of interest to you, we'd probably be open to, but you can always email me to ask. So what I thought would be most helpful for people is to shed light on the process of submitting. So basically, I receive the article from you, I verify that it's within scope of the journal, and I share any initial feedback, which might sometimes just be very simple. Oh, change this one thing and then we can move forward. And then the managing editor assigns a copy editor and a content editor. That's where the double blind peer review comes in. So it's double blind, no names are associated with your work. And within 2 to 3 weeks, we get back to you with notes, and they're consolidated between the editors into one report. And then, it's a list of, to the point of style changes. Sometimes it's just a list of style changes that need to be made and a few writing structure changes that could benefit your writing. But it's a great way to learn how to write better. And also, if you keep working through the process, then definitely a route to publication that's less intimidating than possibly submitting to a journal that's outside the school or, not graduate student run. So basically, yeah, St. Patrick's Day is the deadline. But what I'd say is a lot of people submit their Info 200s, but we also, or their 285s, we also love anything you might have written that was a book review for a class. So don't rule that out, that you can't submit that. Or even if you want to, as someone mentioned, maybe restructure an undergrad paper to pertain to the LIS field if it doesn't already more directly. Or to Anne's point, anything about your own experience in the field is so valuable to share with professionals and other students. So that's the deadline for spring publication, but we're always accepting submissions. So there's no end to when you can submit. You just have to submit something before you graduate, because everything must be submitted and published.
Thank you, Greta. That's really good information for everyone. I think both for learning what the process is and what submissions they are looking for. I'm going to share now with, sorry, I'm just moving forward because we're getting running a bit late here.
No, that's
So,
right.
yeah, so I'm going to have Laurie, if you could start now. You should be able to if
I think
Greta,
Greta
you go
has
to stop share, then
Yeah, you
Laurie.
got it. There you go.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah,
Great. Okay,
perfect.
so I am going to speed through this and tell you about a resource that I think will be very useful if you are considering writing for publication in some form or other. Oops, I think
We
I
do
just
have
lost
20
my...
minutes, so we're not, yeah, we have
Okay,
20 minutes, we're good.
okay. So what I'll try to do is give you an overview of the wiki right now, and I would really encourage you to take some time after this session to just browse through it on your own, because there's a lot in there that we're not going to be able to cover today, and I think this is something that can be really useful to you both as students and also in your professional life beyond the iSchool. So this is a good resource just to keep in mind as you go through your whole career. So what is the wiki? I don't know how many of you have ever even heard of the LIS Publications Wiki, but I'm sure some of you had if you haven't used it. It's really a database of information about places where you can publish work on library and information science topics. So you can think of it like almost like a Wikipedia for LIS-friendly publications. It's not a database of the content of the publications themselves like you might find in a library database, but it's a set of profiles of the publications with links to their websites and other places that you can go for more information. So in the wiki, we currently have more than 300 profiles of publications that are of interest to our community, and that includes scholarly peer-reviewed journals, professional and trade publications that are more newsy and magazine-like. We also include book publishers, and we also have what we call civilian publications, which are publications that aren't really aimed primarily at the library and the information science field, but they are for non-librarians who might in some way benefit from learning about the things that we know about and we care about. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But all this content has been researched and analyzed and compiled by San Jose State iSchool students. So it's a project that we can be proud of. How it got started, it's been around for about more than 10 years now. And boy, how it came to be. Once upon a time, I taught a class in the iSchool on professional publishing. And one of the assignments for students was to research publications that they were interested in and then share that research with the rest of the class. And what we found was that students thought this information was so useful that they didn't want to lose track of it after the class was over. They wanted to be able to access and share each other's research. So what we ended up doing is compiling everything into a wiki and making it public and sharing it with the world. And it built over time as I continued to teach that class. And now, even though I don't teach the class anymore, every semester I invite a couple of students to come on as 298 special studies students to help keep building and updating and improving the wiki and get credit for doing that. So we keep it up. My role is really to provide structure and direction and manage kind of the vision for the whole wiki, but it's students who make it happen. Students create most everything you'll find inside the wiki. They update the profiles that are already there. They research and write new ones, working with editors of those publications. They develop the technology platform. Right now we're using WordPress with a wiki plugin. That's changed over time, but that's what we've got right now. Students build guidelines and they create tutorials that are meant to help other students who are going to be joining the team in the future, so they know what the standards are and how to go about doing things, and they don't have to start from scratch every time as the team changes. And they've also done things like create tagging systems and other organizational tools to help wiki users find what they're looking for. And the wiki just keeps getting better and better. It's a constant work in progress, but it gets better every quarter thanks to the efforts of our student team. It's built by students and it's used by students, but it's not just for students. The wiki is, as I mentioned, it's also for working professionals and educators in the library and information science world, and it's something that you can use throughout your career. It supports all of us who want to publish writing on library and information science topics by helping us find the best venues for publication. So the underlying goal is really to encourage the sharing of professional knowledge within and beyond the library and information science community. And it's developed into a really rich resource over the years, and we do get a lot of feedback on it from people all over the world. So I'm very happy to be able to share it with you. What can you do with it? Some of you may have used the wiki in your core courses. I know some of the instructors like it because it's a good place just to learn about the breadth of LIS environments and careers. You can use it just to discover a lot of the different things that people do in this field and what they're interested in and where their degree takes them. You can also use it as a place to explore the professional publishing territory. It's a good place to really learn about where and how you can publish your own work, and just to discover what's out there, no matter what kind of writing you want to do. It gives you a place to really generate ideas and find out what the scope of publications is that's available to you. If you are an editor or you're involved with a publication in some way, whether it's a student publication or a professional publication later on in your career, you can check the wiki to make sure that your publication is included and verify that all the information is up to date. And if it's not, check in with us and let us know. If it's not in there, we invite editors to either create the profiles themselves or to work with a student to develop a new profile. And usually, almost always, they go to the student and say, please do this for me and I will review it. So we do have good collaboration between students and editors many times on the content of the profiles. So finally, if you find this to be something interesting and you have really strong writing, editing, and research skills, you can earn iSchool credit as a wiki contributor. And this is through the 298 Special Studies program, and it's something that a couple of students do every semester. Many students stay on more than one semester, so the team keeps evolving. And if that's something you think you might be interested in, after you've had a chance to play around with the wiki for a while, get in touch with me and we can talk about what openings we have available on the team coming up in the future. So those are some of the things you can do with the wiki. There are also some things that the wiki is not good for. You can't use it to find every possible place to publish. It's not comprehensive. Everything is not in. We do add to it every semester, but the way it grows is really organic. It's not systematic, and that's because I really encourage the students who write the new profiles to work on publications that they're really interested in. So sometimes it's kind of hit and miss, and we've covered some areas better than others, but it does keep growing and getting bigger and better over time. It's also really focused on nonfiction. So if you are looking for a place to publish your poetry or your novel, this is not the place to look. Let's see. It's also not always going to give you perfect information. We do try to review and update every entry at least once every 2 years, but things can change in between. Sometimes publications change their policies, they merge with other publications, and sometimes they even stop publishing completely. So updating all this information is a never-ending job. And that means that this is really for you a starting point. It's not the end of your search to find the best place to publish, but it's really the place to start. And it's not where you would contact editors or submit work. It gives you an overview of what the publications are and what they do, and points you toward more information and contacts so that you can pursue your publications. So think of this almost like a Wikipedia. If you were wanting to learn something about an unfamiliar topic. You might go to Wikipedia first just to get a general overview of the topic and get some pointers to other sources. It's the same kind of idea here. This is the beginning of your search. It's not the end of your search. It's going to give you the introduction and then point you to more information. This is what the homepage looks like right now. And I'll go to a live demo in a minute, but you can see that we have basically 4 categories of publications. We have scholarly journals, which are peer-reviewed. We have professional and trade publications. We have book publishers that will publish complete books on library and information science topics. And then we have the civilian publications that I mentioned, which are places where you might be able to publish information on a library or information science topic for an audience of non-librarians. And this is, I'm trying to encourage people to take advantage of the opportunity to share our expertise and tell our stories to our communities. And I think that's really, really important. So I love that civilian publication section. You will also see a section called Works in Progress, and this is basically a list of publications that we have run across but we have not profiled yet. So they are empty templates that will need to be filled in by our team over time. So I will go to a quick tour here. Let's see how much time we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to at least show you a couple of things before we run out. So can everybody see that? There's the wiki there. Let me drop out of my PowerPoint. All right. So there's our home page that you just saw. And what I wanted to show you here was you can see the main categories that we talked about. There are several different ways to get into them. There's the list here at the home page. There is a menu here in the right-hand column that stays on all the content pages, so it's very easy to jump around. The profiles are all still listed up in the profile tab. So if we want to look at a sample column or a sample category, let's say scholarly journals, if we go in there, you can see a list of the scholarly journals, peer-reviewed journals that have already been profiled. So it's quite an extensive list. And again, this is not complete, but it's a good list and it'll give you a really good idea of the scope of what's out there. If you, every category has a list like this. It's like your table of contents for that category. And you can click on any one of these titles. Let's just pick one. I was looking for a particular one. Okay, let's do In the Library with the Lead Pipe. This is a great publication, so if you don't know about it, this is a good one to go look at. This is what a typical profile will look like. You will see 2 sections. One is about the publication, and the other is about the publication's, I gotta keep going down, about the audience. So you have the audience analysis and a publication analysis. And in the audience analysis, you are going to see, I'm sorry, in the publication analysis, you get a general sense of what the purpose of the publication is, the audience, the publisher, is it peer-reviewed or not? If it's in the scholarly publication section, it is going to be peer-reviewed. Is it online? Is it in print? All that sort of thing. What the submission guidelines are like, where you go for more information. Then there's a conclusion that the student who did the evaluation has written about the potential of this publication for LIS authors and what sort of things you might want to consider submitting to it. Then in the audience analysis, there's information about who reads this publication, what do you need to know about them, what are they like, what are they interested in, how much do they know about the topic, and then again, a conclusion about the reader characteristics and how that might impact you as an author. So those are important things to think about that often I think get neglected. So we put a lot of emphasis on thinking not just about what you want to write, but about who's going to read it. So these are the things that I ask the students who are writing the profiles to research and think about. But again, the information will change and it'll vary somewhat depending on who wrote each profile. So think of this as your initial screening of the publication, and then do go on to click on the links and see what else you can find when you go to the publications website. And I also highly recommend that if you are considering submitting something to a publication, read some of the back issues and get a good sampling for what kind of work they actually do publish. And that's a good way to see if this might be a good fit for the kind of work you're thinking about submitting. So in addition, as I mentioned, we have more than 300 of these profiles in the wiki. And in addition to that, I just want to point out a few other little features that I think are kind of neat. We do have a blog that is written by our students that talks about features of the wiki, gives writing tips, highlights specific publications that students have found interesting, and that's kind of a useful thing. One place to go if you're not familiar with the wiki, that's a really good resource, is this tips and resources section. And that includes tips for using the wiki, and it also has resources beyond the wiki about places to publish and writing communities and things like that that can be useful. If you look at the wiki use tips section, there are some really good ideas for ways to search the wiki to find what you're looking for. One of our students wrote this as a blog post, and it gives you a sense of when do you search by category? When is it better to search by tag? When should you use the search box? And you can also search by title or by ISSN. And so that's a good thing to get familiar with if you're going to use the wiki a lot. There's also our tag system was set up by a student, and it's very useful. This tag cloud over here shows you the most popular tags. This is not all of the tags, but it's the tags that get used the most. So for example, if you're really focused on writing book reviews, you can go to the book review tag and get a list of all the publications that have told us that they accept or publish book reviews. If you're interested in a particular topic or a particular kind of library, like public libraries, you can go there and get a sense of what kind of publications you might want to look at in more detail. So these are the most popular tags. If you want to look at all the tags that are out there, excuse me, this page shows you how we set up the tagging system and links to all the tags that we have included in the wiki. And if you're interested in something very specific, like say military libraries, you're probably not going to find it in the list of popular tags, but if you go down here to library collection type, you can find military libraries, you can find music libraries, you can find very specific things that might not have a lot of entries, but they might get you more quickly to the kind of publication that you're looking for. So we are at 6:30. Kelly, I think I'm going to skip the behind the scenes tour because I don't want to take everybody beyond the time that they have allowed for this. Do you want to go on to questions?
Yeah, why don't we pause for questions? That might be a good idea. I really appreciate all that you showed. It's amazing. I can't wait to explore it more myself.
And I would like to just emphasize once again that pretty much everything you see there was done by students, and I have to give a big loud shout out to our team that has evolved over the years, but they've been at this now for over 10 years now. And people come and go, but everybody who steps into the team has been really dedicated, really hardworking and creative, and it's the students who have built this and who have made it what it is today. So I really appreciate all that work that goes into it.
Yeah, that's a lot, and it is a team effort.
Yes.
I think I would mention that you will put that out in an iAlert when you're looking for recruiting new students for the wiki.
Yes, we have 2 students on our team this semester, and I see Erin on the list. I don't see Phyllis. She was going to try to make it, but we usually have a very small team. Hi, Erin. And this semester we have 2 students. We usually try to have 2 or 3. And I do put out a notice when we have an opening on the team. Some students stay more than one semester. We've had students stay as many as 4 semesters, but you can only do 6 units of 298. So that's something to keep in mind too. If you have done other 298s, you're limited in what you can do. But when I do have an opening, I will put out an alert. If you are interested and you haven't seen an alert, feel free to contact me and I'll let you know what's coming up and whether we have openings that I just haven't publicized yet.
Yeah, thank you for giving us that information. Would anyone else like to ask a question for Laurie? Or any of us, really? Okay. Thank you, Laurie. Thank you so much. That was so useful, and I learned so much. And Anne, again, that was wonderful. I think if I'd had been able to attend a webinar like this when I had started out in Info 200, and I took Info 285 last semester, I would have loved to have this information before that class as well.
Yeah, we have a question from Michelle in the chat. She was asking if most publications ask for initial queries for article ideas or full-blown articles, excuse me. And I would say a mix. I think what I've learned from some of the editors on my staff that have gotten published in other publications is they just reached out to the editors in chiefs of those journals and just asked, hey, would you be interested in a book review of this topic? Because that's a great way to start. Or, hey, is this a topic that is within scope of your journal? So it's totally fine to, you know, reach out initially, not with a full article, but with a concept or with what you think, you know, they might want to do. Or one of our editors who was published in the Libraries History, Cultures History Journal, I always forget the order, but anyway, he just emailed the editor and said, what books do you want reviewed? And the editor sent him back a list of books. So sometimes it can be very simple in terms of just beginning that communication without necessarily having something fully ready to go.
That's a good point. And you know, we do the same just with Archeota. I have ideas, and last issue I had ideas and just asked people, would you be interested in writing about, say, the museum? Or that worked out quite well. We do have ideas as editors. We can't write every article for the journal, so yeah, do ask.
And I mentioned looking at back issues of the publications you're interested in. I really recommend doing that and at least searching table of contents for their archives to see if the topic you're thinking about has already been written about. Because it may be that it was already covered or it was covered in a different way and you want to take a new look at it or add some information to the conversation, or it may be that that's not the right publication for you to submit to because they've already covered the topic. So it's really good to do a little of that homework before you query the editor and just find out what they've already done on your subject.
Yeah, that's good. Be informed first.
Yes.
I think we're doing well. Anne, did you want to add anything?
I was just going to mention that the Library and Information Science Source Database is a really good resource. If you're thinking about a topic, enter it into the database, and then click on the sources and see who's publishing on that topic. And that's also a quick way to find out if they've published on your particular idea, like last month or 6 months ago, and may not be interested.
Thank you. As we're talking and asking questions and answering them, I'm realizing that there's so much information and so useful to such a broad range of, I can't imagine any iSchool student who wouldn't find this really interesting. So not only am I going to post the recording of this on our website, the SAASC, I will share that with other student chapters. I'll get the word out there. But I think also, I'd like to write up a highlights for this so that, you know, that information is there. Okay, I think we've come to the end. I want to thank Anne. Thank you so much for participating. Really appreciate that. And Laurie too. That was really interesting. I hadn't been aware of just how much information was in the wiki. And Greta, thank you so much. I know you're going to be looking for submissions for the next issue. So everyone out there, I hope you're inspired and get in touch with Greta and find out more. And Archeota, yes, reach out to me too. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, Kelly.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.